My dear friends, let's study one more sonnet from John Keats, one of the most important poets of the second generation of Romantics. The poem that we are going to study in this video is actually a sonnet that is based on Petrarchan model. You all of know about Petrarch. Petrarch was an Italian sonneteer. He wrote a sonnet sequence particularly for his beloved Leora, and he divided his sonnets in two parts, octave of 8 lines and sestet of 6 lines. So this sonnet that we are going to study line by line is also divided into two parts, octave of 8 lines and sestet of 6 lines. With the rhyme scheme AB, BA, AB, BA, CD, CD, CD. In this poem, actually John Keats is expressing his surprise, his wonder, and his happiness and his joy when he went through George Chapman's translation of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. That George Chapman, an Elizabethan age poet and playwright, did means translated probably in the year 1596, and probably John Keats read that translation in the year 1816, just a day before composing this poem. Just a day before composing this poem, his friend Charles Cowden Clarke invited him to spend a night with him and read together a translation of George Chapman's Homer. Why? Because he got a copy of that translation from somewhere else. So they spent the whole night, means John Keats and his friend Charles Cowden Clarke spent whole night reading that translation. And the next morning, Charles Cowden Clarke found this very particular poem lying on the breakfast table at about 10 a.m. So let's see what does actually John Keats describe in this sonnet. Much have I travelled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Here he says, much have I travelled. Here travelled stands for reading. He says, I have read a lot. In the realm of gold here, it means literature. Literature that was a kind of a city or the world of gold for John Keats. So here John Keats says that he has read a lot literature. And that literature that he read is just like the world of the gold. Why? Because he felt immensely happy. He felt immensely happy in reading those poems or those works of the different writers. And those just works of the different writers helped John Keats travel different part of those unknown, of those different parts of that unknown world of literature. And that's why here he says, much have I travelled, means much have I read. I have read a lot. I have not read a book or two or three, but read maybe 1,000 books he has read. Means he has read a lot. And while reading, how did he feel? He felt as if he was traveling in the country of the gold or in the world of the gold. Why? Because he was earning a lot. He was growing in knowledge. He was growing so much in knowledge that he compares his reading of those different just works of the different writers of the world of the gold, of the realm of the gold. And that's why he says that he read a lot and his reading experience was mind-blowing, that he cannot express in words. He says, round many western islands have I been. So he says, because of reading works of the different authors, very rich in imagination, just I traveled different islands of the west, he says, which bards, poets in fealty to Apollo hold. And those authors he read, they were very much dedicated and faithful and honest to the god of poetry, that is Apollo. So he says that he has read a lot, he has read greatly, he has read greatly the works of the different authors, those authors belonging to the different western islands who were very much dedicated and very much honest to their just god of poetry. And since they wrote about different things, they imagined about different world, different beautiful world. While reading those different works, just it seemed to John Keats that he had been traveling in the different world or different countries along with those different writers. And that's why, see, he says, much have I traveled in the realms of gold and have seen so many different countries and so many different states. See, oft of wide expense had I been told. So he says that deep, broad Homer ruled as his Demson, or yes, Demson. Demson, this a kind of just a landed state or a kind of a state or a kind of a country or the kingdom or the region. So he says that while reading different just writers of the western just islands, just he learned a lot. He learned a lot actually about Homer, but he did not get that kind of experience. He did not get that kind of understanding of Homer through his work before going through George Chapman's translation of Homer. He says, though oft of the wide expense had I been told. He means to say that before reading George Chapman's Homer, he read here something about Homer, there something about Homer. Maybe indirectly here John Keats is talking about John Dryden's translation of Homer and Alexander Pope's translation of Homer. But the translation, he indirectly talking about those translations of Dryden and Alexander Pope, that those translations probably did not help him learn a lot about Homer, or somehow those translations did not give that kind of a range of understanding, or that scale, or that kind of a canvas of the work of actually just a Homer that George Chapman's translation actually gave to John Keats and helped John Keats understand a lot about Homer. That's why he says, yet did I never breathe its pure serene. That's what I told you, that he says that though he read about Homer through this book, that book, he knew a little from here, a little from there about Homer. He means to say, once again I'm telling you, he means to give a hint about the translations of Dryden and Homer. But he here wants to say that those translations did not help him a lot learn about Homer, or did not help him a lot arouse his interest in the work of Homer. But George Chapman's Homer, excellent, mind-blowing. See, then felt I like till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. So see here, he says, when I read the George Chapman's translation of Homer, it seemed as if George Chapman was speaking all out loud and bold about the qualities of Homer, about the creation of Homer, about the masterpiece of Homer. Means he was surprisingly, or he was amazingly just thunderstruck, or you can say he was in a kind of awe after having read Homer. Means after having read the translation of George Chapman's Homer. You can better understand. See, how does he feel here after reading just George Chapman's translation of Homer? He says, then felt I like some watcher. Here he's talking about watcher, means explorer. Just a watcher. He is talking about a sky watcher. Sky watcher, when he talks about, he has in his own mind what? William, certain kind of actually just explorer who was working under the George the Third king at that time, and that very particular, you see this actually astronomer had succeeded in discovering Uranus, and at that time people at large had a lot of interest in astronomy and in the just new planet. Yes, that was William Herschel. William Herschel was that person who was an explorer or a sky watcher or astronomer just to the court of George the Third. And just before 14 years, just before the birth of John, just 14 years before the birth of John Keats, it's mean probably in 1581. Probably 1581, not I think 1518, probably 1681. No, not 1681. Why? Because he was born in 1795, and exactly a few years, you can say that exactly a few years before the birth of, he was born in 1795, and probably it was 1785, sorry, 81 probably. Exactly, I'm not clear, but just a few years before the birth of John Keats, William Herschel, an astronomer to the court of George III had discovered Uranus, a planet that that aroused the curiosity and interest of the people in astronomy, and that's why here actually John Keats is talking about that watcher. He says that when William Herschel may have may have discovered that planet Uranus, his happiness would know no bound. He would extremely be happy. He would be over the moon. In the same manner, when John Keats read the translation of George Chapman's Homer, he was extremely happy. He felt as if he were a sky watcher, an astronomer, and discovered a new planet in the sky. That's why here he calls or compares himself to a watcher. When a new planet skims, floats into his into his view in the eye range, or like stout Cortes, a Spanish again explorer, all right, who just actually just felt extremely glad when he saw first time the Pacific, Pacific Ocean. But to bear in mind, there was some other just explorer. He was not the Cortes, and actually it was Belova. Probably Belova, exactly I don't remember the name of that very particular explorer who actually first of all saw Pacific Ocean. He probably first of all saw this Pacific Ocean, but here John Keats is just giving the credit to Cortes to watch or see just Pacific first time. Probably. Why? Because actually John Keats is here giving the second-hand account of just a Homer. Because the first account, according to him, was given by George Chapman. And now he is giving the second-hand account. And that's why here he is not making mention of that actually just explorer who actually gets the credit of just finding or seeing the Pacific first. Why? Because he, as per the opinions of the most of the critics, it was not Cortes, a Spanish explorer, but it was another Spanish explorer. Maybe exactly I don't remember the name of that explorer who happened to see the Pacific first, and later Cortes, this Spanish explorer, saw that. But since just John Keats is giving this second-hand account of just Homer in this, because of that here he is giving the credit to Cortes, not that explorer. See, Cortes when with eagle eye, see the eagle eye means with his sharp, strong vision, he looked at Pacific and all his men. So he says, means he felt that thrill, that joy, that excitement after going through George Chapman's Homer, that a sky gazer, sky watcher feels after discovering a new planet, or an explorer. That explorer Cortes, actually some other had done it, but here is giving the credit to Cortes, that when Cortes saw first, or would have seen first, that the Pacific he would be extremely thrilled and overjoyed in the same manner John Keats was thrilled and extremely overjoyed after reading the translation of George Chapman's Homer. See this. Looked at each other with wild surmise imagination, silent upon a peak in Darien. Darien is a place in Panama. So actually Cortes, not Cortes, some other explorer, as per the opinions of most of the critics, had actually seen first what Pacific, but John Keats is giving the credit to Cortes. So he says Cortes with his other companions was standing on the top of a Darien. You see this, yes, Darien, a kind of, you can say this place in Panama, and when he saw, he was extremely glad or overjoyed. In the same manner, John Keats was overjoyed and thrilled after going through the translation of George Chapman's Homer. So I hope, my dear learners, you must have enjoyed this beautiful sonnet from John Keats. That's it in this video, my dear learners. But before I leave, once again, I would make a personal appeal to all of you that if you like my explanation of this poem, please do like it and subscribe it and share with your dear ones. Thank you, dears.